Today we'll walk through several key events from the last 24 hours and translate them into clear, practical preparedness steps, region by region, with global takeaways. Event number 1. High-speed train disaster in Spain. A high-speed train crash in southern Spain has killed at least 21 people, with dozens more injured, and after collision and derailment involving high-speed trains. A region affected is southern Spain, with ripple effects across European rail networks. Why it matters? This is a reminder that even in developed countries with modern infrastructure, transportation systems can fail through technical faults, human error, or cascading issues like signaling failures. For travelers and commuters, it highlights the vulnerability of high-density transport corridors and the importance of having basic contingency plans when you rely on rail or public transit. Prepping actions for affected region. Travel redundancy. Always have at least one backup route, bus, rideshare, or alternative train line pre-identified for regular routes. Go back for commuters. Carry a compact kit, water, basic first aid, power bank, flashlight, and a written emergency contact card. Family comms plan. Agree on, if I don't check in by X time, rules and a default meeting point in your city. Local blood donation and first aid. If you're able, consider first aid training and periodic blood donation. These events train local medical systems. Global implications for other regions and preppers in that regions. Infrastructure is not binary. Modern doesn't mean fail-proof. Treat all transport systems as failable and plan accordingly. Mass casualty readiness. Urban preppers should assume that large accidents, train, bus, metro, are plausible and prepare for temporary gridlock, overloaded hospitals, and communication delays. Travel risk assessment. When traveling abroad, research local emergency numbers, hospitals, locations, and typical transport risks. Forecast, best, normal, and worst. Best case, investigation finds a specific fixable cause, safety protocols are upgraded, confidence in the rail system recovers quickly. Normal case. Some safety improvements are implemented, but systematic issues, maintenance backlogs, staffing, or aging infrastructure remain partially unresolved. And worst case, further incidents or near misses reveal deeper systematic failures leading to prolonged disruptions, reduced service, and broader public distrust in rail safety. Event number 2. Escalating tariff tensions over Greenland. Global markets are bracing for turbulence after a new tariff shock linked to US threats over Greenland, while the European Union prepares roughly 93 billion euros in retaliatory tariffs in response. Region affected is primarily United States, European Union, Greenland. Secondary, any export-dependent economy tied into US-EU trade flows. Why it matters. Tariff escalations are not just political theater, they can reshape prices, supply chains, and availability of key goods. When major economies move toward a trade confrontation, it can affect everything from food imports to electronics, vehicles, and industrial materials. For preppers, this is about anticipating price volatility and potential shortages, not panic. Prepping actions for affected regions. Inventory check. Review your 30 to 90 days supplies of essentials, staple foods, hygiene items, medications where legally possible, and critical household consumables. Second, price-sensitive items. If you rely on imported goods, electronics, tools, vehicle parts, consider advancing purchases you already planned for the next 3 to 6 months. Budget buffer. Build a small financial cushion for price spikes. Even a modest emergency fund reduces stress when inflation or tariffs hit. Local alternatives. Identify local regional substitutes for imported products you depend on. And the global implications for other regions are knock-on inflation. Countries tied into US or EU supply chains may see secondary price increases even if they are not directly targeted by tariffs. Currency and market swings. Volatility in major markets can affect pensions, investments, and employment in export-oriented sectors, and signal for future disruptions. This kind of tariff shock is a reminder that geopolitical decisions can rapidly change economic conditions. Preppers should treat trade tensions as early warning signals for supply chain stress. Forecast. The best case scenario is negotiations de-escalate, tariffs are reduced or delayed, markets stabilize after a short period of volatility. Normal case is that tariffs are implemented but remain targeted, prices rise in specific sectors, and households feel moderate but manageable pressure. And the worst case scenario is a broader trade war emerges, with cascading tariffs, supply shortages, and sustained inflation in food, energy, and manufactured goods. Event number 3. Syrian military advances into Kurdish-held areas. Syria's military has seized significant swath of Kurdish-held territory, shifting control lines and raising tensions in already unstable regions. Region affected is northern and northeastern Syria, with implications for Turkey, Iraq, and the wider Middle East. Why it matters. Territorial shifts in conflict zones can trigger new waves of displacement, disrupt aid routes, and increase the risk of clashes between state forces, militias, and external actors. For people in one or near the region, this can mean sudden changes in security checkpoints and access to essentials. For global preppers, it's a reminder that political borders and control can change quickly, especially in fragile states. Prepping actions for affected region is security mapping, track which groups control which areas and how that affects your roads to markets, hospitals, and borders. Evacuation readiness. Keep documents, cash, and essentials in a compact, ready-to-move kit. Know at least 2 exit routes from your area. Community networks. Coordinate with trusted neighbors or families for shared transport, information, and mutual aid if conditions deteriorate. And aid access. Identify where NGOs, non-governmental organizations, or UN agencies are currently operating and how to reach them if needed. Global implications for other regions are refugee flows. Renewed conflict can increase migration pressures on neighboring countries and Europe, influencing politics and social tensions. Terrorism and security. Power vacuums or shifting alliances can create space for extremist groups or to regroup, affecting global security policies and travel advisories. Energy and trade routes. While Syria is not a major energy exporter, instability in the region can influence perceptions of risk around broader Middle East infrastructure and roads. Forecasts for best, normal, and worst scenarios are: the best case, a fragile but functional ceasefire emerges, frontlines stabilize, humanitarian access improves in some areas. Normal case, low intensity conflict continues with periodic flare-ups, localized displacement, and ongoing humanitarian strain. And the worst case scenario is escalating draws in more regional actors, triggers large-scale displacement, and significantly disrupts aid and regional stability. Event number 4. Major fire in Seoul's last remaining shanty town. A significant fire has broken out in Seoul's last remaining shanty town, destroying homes and displacing residents in a dense, informal settlement. Region affected is Seoul, South Korea, specifically informal or substandard housing clusters within a major metropolitan area. Why it matters? Urban fires in informal settlements spread fast due to dense construction, flammable materials, and limited access for fire services. Even in wealthy cities, pockets of high-risk housing exist. For urban preppers, this is a clear example of how housing type and neighborhood layout can dramatically change your risk profile. Prepping actions for affected region. Home fire audit. Check wiring, extension cords, and overloaded outlets. Reduce cluster and flammable storage near exits. Escape planning. Map at least 2 exit routes from your home and building. Practice with them with family members. Fire kit. Keep a small fire extinguisher, smoke alarms, and flashlight accessible. Consider fire-resistant document storage. And community awareness. In dense neighborhoods, coordinate with neighbors about shared risks, blocked stairwells, illegal wiring, or locked exits. Global implications for other regions are Urban vulnerability. Many cities worldwide have informal settlements or aging buildings with similar fire risks. This is not unique to Seoul. Displacement risk. A single fire can render hundreds homeless, stressing local shelters and social services, something preppers should factor into urban risk assessments. Policy signal. Events like these often trigger local debates about redevelopment, eviction, and housing safety, changes that can affect where it's wise to live long term. Forecast is best case scenario. Authorities respond quickly with rehousing, safety upgrades, and targeted support. No further major incidents occur. Normal case. Limited assistance is provided. Some residents return to similarly risky housing. Fire risk remains elevated. And worst case, repeated fires or accidents occur before meaningful upgrades, leading to chronic displacement and heightened social tension. And the event number 5 is intensifying tensions and crackdowns in Iran. Iran continues to face internal tensions and crackdowns, with reports of violent suppression of protests and high-profile cases drawing international attention. Iran, with political insecurity spillover in the region, with potential across the Middle East and into global diplomatic and economic areas. Why it matters. Sustained internal unrest and harsh crackdowns can destabilize a country's economy, disrupt daily life, and increase the risk of sudden escalations, strikes, internet shutdowns, or violent clashes. For those inside or near Iran, this affects personal safety, access to information, and economic stability. For global preppers, it's another example of how internal politics can rapidly change risk levels in a region. Prepping actions for affected region are information redundancy. Prepare for internet disruptions, offline maps, printed contacts, and pre-arranged communication plans. Second, low-profile posture. Avoid protest hotspots if your goal is safety. No alternative roads around major squares and government buildings. Cash and essentials are the third point. Maintain a modest reserve of local currency and basic supplies in case of strikes, curfews, or banking disruptions. And the fourth is document readiness. Keep IDs, passports, and key documents accessible in case you need to move quickly. And for global implications for other regions and preppers in other regions are energy markets. Iran-related tensions can influence oil prices and shipping risk perceptions, which may feed into fuel costs globally. Sanctions and trade. New sanctions or diplomatic moves can affect companies and supply chains connected to the region. And security posture. Heightened tensions may lead to changes in travel advisories and security measures in neighboring countries. Forecast. Best, normal, and worst are best case, gradual de-escalation, limited reforms, and the reduction in invisible crackdowns. Economic conditions stabilize somewhat. Normal case, periodic protests and crackdowns continue. The situation remains tense but short of full-scale upheaval. And worst case, a major escalation leads to widespread unrest, severe repression, and significant regional or international confrontation. So today's events highlight 5 recurrent themes for preppers. Infrastructure can fail even in advanced countries. Trade tensions can quietly reshape your cost of living. Conflicts can redraw maps overnight. Urban housing type defines your fire risk, and internal political tensions can rapidly change daily life. The practical thread through all of this is simple. Know your local risk, build redundancy roads, supplies, and communication. Keep your plans calm, written, and realistic. If you found this brief useful, subscribe for the next daily regional prepping brief, share it with someone who needs a calm voice in the noise, and let me know in the comments which region you want covered in more depth next time. Today's sections build on what we've covered earlier this week. Watch that next so you're not missing any